Hello to you all, Millie Lloyd. Today's old school opinion is on why PlayStation. Before we begin, please like and comment and share, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. It will help the channel grow and make an old man happy. Let's get to the video. The last one of these I made was quite fun, about the Amstrad CPC 464. So I thought it's about time I done one for the recently announced 100 million ship console. Just as importantly, what brought me here to the dance and what has made me stick with Sony consoles. There is so much I wish I could capture, but that will be for another day. I will go back someday in the future and will make a new and improved version of this video. So as anyone who has watched my Amstrad piece knows, that was my first ever system. I swapped, well lended really, to some friends in Portsmouth. I borrowed first of all a Commodore 64 and then a Spectrum 48K for about a week each. I was soon pining for some Amstrad goodness. They released a 664 and a 6128, both disk drive machines. In the end I bought an external drive for my Amstrad. I had high hopes for the Amstrad GX4000, but with no games nor real difference to the loading times when compared to a disc, nor step up in graphics, it bombed big time and I was left in the wilderness. I had looked at a PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16 in France, but lack of games available put me off in the end. I also had a Master System for a time. I amassed around 20 games before it was stolen from the bedsit my mum was staying at the time. Then my eyes fell on the Atari ST and Amiga 500, and it was a tough toss-up. Both were massively more powerful than the Amstrad and faster to load. In the end, it felt like there was more support for the Amiga, so ultimately I went with the Commodore Amiga. To get something off my chest, I'm sorry Rob, I know you got the Atari ST because I said I was getting one, but then I kind of changed my plans without letting you know. Sorry man. I know, asshole move, right? This I had for a couple of years. Then the drive broke. I had it fixed 3 times in Leicester. I'd purchased it in Portsmouth. It was a little beyond my expertise to fit a drive myself. I had around 500 games for the system, and yet, unfortunately somehow, it was never properly fixed. So I moved on to the Mega Drive. I think I bought 3 or 4 of these in total. Oh, and a Mega CD. They were all fine and all, but more on this later. Then I got a NES for a while. I got to play Mario and Final Fantasy after trying them on Marks and Williams consoles respectively. Then I moved on to SNES. Again I have to thank Mark for showing me the console, and soon enough I was wanting the SNES. This was my new console of choice for a couple of years. This was really the first time since Amiga that I felt I wanted to settle on one machine. Now let's step back a second and ask yourself for a moment why I glanced over so many consoles. I will get to that in a moment. After a couple of years and many great games, after the green eye monster reared its ugly head again, thanks Mark Topless, I got myself an original PlayStation. Now within a year I knew something was very different with this beast, and even though I had bought an N64, was traded for a Jaguar, and even Shane Herbert gave me a GameCube at one point. All good consoles with some pretty good games, and now we go back to that reason. Their games all got to be in the same, not just in looks, even the way the game plays. Really the Amstrad had been that way too, but it had been new to me at the time. That is not to say there'd been no innovation to gaming, just not often or often enough in my opinion, nor the variety of games for that matter. The PlayStation changed all that more than any other console that came before in my opinion. During the NES years, Nintendo had tied up companies with restrictions. You could only develop for Nintendo consoles. You would be paid a lot less if games went elsewhere, say to Sega. Supports you could not get anywhere. This made gaming restricted and contracts sort of stumped the growth of gaming. This in fact went on for 2 generations because it was cartridge based, cost was high and games were expensive, up to £80 a game on SNES. PlayStation came along a long time before the Nintendo 64. It gave companies chance to jump ship with little or no repercussions. Series that had only been on Nintendo consoles before, Final Fantasy, Ghouls and Ghosts, etc., did make the crossover. There was a few companies at the beginning, but then the floodgates opened. Some companies stuck to what they knew that would make them the most money. They played it safe, so to speak. Sega, as time went on, outpriced themselves, and Nintendo, the consoles were coming out too late, gave Sony a real head start that it needed. Sony offered somewhere where companies could release a game. It was also cheaper to put on disc than it was on cartridge. This led to 2 generations of shovelware on Sony consoles, but also some fantastic games as well. Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Worms and Rayman, to name a few. It was also the start of a budget range on console. Platinum range, half price games, basically $19.99 a game, but then they went one better and we got a $9.99 range. This was fantastic, and certainly kids with consoles were able to get more games. With them being on CD, it was fantastic. Now I will point out these games were pretty far from AAA titles, but nor were they ever meant to be. Fun little titles that didn't burn a £30 to £40 hole in your wallet. With the extra storage and low costs, Nintendo even chose cartridges again. To me, all systems have their strengths and weaknesses. Sony have always done a good job of showing their strengths and glossing over their weaknesses. Yes, Sony has paid for exclusivity and have bought studios to make games exclusively for PlayStation consoles, but they haven't penalised the company for releasing games elsewhere, sometimes even welcoming them back with open arms when they do. Yes, I am looking at you, Insomniac. All companies have done things for the survival of their brand that they might not be so proud of. But I do think that one console would lead to stagnation. You want to know what made Sony try so hard with the PlayStation 4? Xbox 360, the year head start, Nintendo. They've learned their lesson. Yes, they will make mistakes and they will have to overcome them. Know that it's only going to get better. Watch this space, and that I did indeed call it when it comes to the PlayStation 5. So let's rewind to the Amstrad days. You might have had an Atari console or an Intellivision or a Commodore Spectrum, BBC microcomputer, MSX or Amstrad. Mostly you would have been playing in the bedroom unless you had a monitor or people was out for the day. It may have changed for some if they had their own place, but being a teen, no chance. For some it did change a little bit when the Mega Drive and the SNES came out, but PlayStation put the console in most gamers' living rooms. Its promotion was great, putting it in London nightclubs, showing off arcade games, the like of which we had never seen before. Looking at Ridge Racer, Tekken and Battle Arena Shinshin, at the time it was groundbreaking. It set off quite a buzz. Gone were the days of having to be in your bedroom. It could be loud and proud in the living room. There still were naysayers, but it had taken a step in the right direction. The first 2 PlayStations were CDs and PlayStation 2 was DVDs. Again, it made it so it fit into your living room better. Some of the SCART leads of the time had splitters to plug them into your stereo. We move on to the PlayStation 3. It was the first console with a Blu-ray player. Sony has always tried to push the boat when it came to the home console, with new technology, or new for a console technology anyway, especially when considered at the point of release. Another reason I've stuck with Sony. But let's get to the main reason, and also to the reason why I am such an advocate to the Sony brand. Every console in the PlayStation lineup has had its own main CPU and architecture, a motion chip and cell chip in the PlayStation 2 and 3 respectively. As well, in the PlayStation 2, they also had the original PlayStation's main chip as a sound chip. This allowed for easier backwards compatibility. Then Sony had a change of heart with the PlayStation 4. They made its architecture like the PC x86 architecture. Suddenly development was easier from the get-go. They could concentrate more on the things that matter most to a gamer in the console. Them lovely games, nom nom. This is why that for as long as there is a PlayStation, it will be my choice of console. It's the variety of games and genres, unique experiences, I can even say sometimes never being replicated again. So let's start with the original PlayStation. Aquanaut's Holiday. You are in a single man submersible and must communicate with the whales and the fish to truly understand what the game is about. Silent Hill, a dark game with a darker story. Third person survival horror. Azure Dreams, an RPG where you must work your way up a tower to find out what happened to your father, save the village and collect monsters. Music, a music making studio with a mixer and hours of fun to be had. Time Crisis, a gun game with one amazing gun. And Harvest Moon, Back to Nature, a farming game that makes you rethink about how much fun a farming game can be. All different and all great fun. Mr. Mosquito. You're a mosquito and must feed on the blood from different victims. Katamari Damacy. You're picking up bits of rubbish and soon it's planets. Champions of Norath, and hack and slash RPG set in the EverQuest universe. Drakengard, a hack and slash game where you meet a dragon and you are both at the point of death and make a pact. A mucho bloodbath ensues. And SingStar, a karaoke game with a score, many of hours of fun to be had here. Again, more variety and all for the PlayStation 2. Maybe not to everyone's taste, but sure as hell it was to mine. Little Big Planet 2D platformer with some great levels and a fantastic creator mode. Valkyria Chronicles, a strategy RPG with a fantastic art style. Heavenly Sword, a hack and slash treat with a fantastic story. Naughty Bear, maybe best game ever. You play as a psychotic bear who kills other bears in horrible ways. It's great. Heavy Rain, a psychological thriller and a real rollercoaster ride. Resistance, Fall of Man, an alien invasion set in an alternate 1951, and it was a launch title. And Yakuza Dead Souls, a zombie outbreak set in the Yakuza universe, all for the PlayStation 3. On to today, this generation, Farpoint, a VR shooter set in space that looks like it's out of Starship Troopers. God of War, a whole new adventure set in Norse mythology. Spider-Man, somehow they made Spider-Man all new and better. Until Dawn, it's like a horror movie and a game all in one that really works well. And Horizon Zero Dawn, robots plus dinosaurs equals money. It also makes a damn fine game. To me, they're all experiences, and whilst they are comparable to games on other consoles, these are all experiences to me and available on one console brand, PlayStation. I get that for some people they can talk about Nintendo and Microsoft in the same way, and if their console is perfect for them, I'm really happy for them. But for me, PlayStation has kept me entertained all these years. Building a hospital on the original PlayStation, Theme Hospital, was fantastic. It has just been announced for the PlayStation 4 Hospital 2.0. A newer version of Theme Hospital is coming out. Or maybe it's shooting a chicken gun on the original Ratchet and Clank, or being a cowboy in Red Dead Redemption, which is getting a remaster soon. Yes please. Or go on an adventure during a Plague's Tale Innocence. There is always something to play or something to do on a PlayStation console. Right now we need to own up to some things. I am approaching 850 PlayStation 4 games. Last generation around 800 games. I know I will make 1000 games before the generation is through. I also know it will be day one for me with a PlayStation 5. With backwards compatibility being a thing, that is not to say I am right and others are wrong. It's right for me. With Sony making new IPs this generation, Horizon Zero Dawn, Days Gone, Uncharted series, Ni no Kuni series, Yakuza series and Shenmue all continuing, it just shows what is on offer for a PlayStation gamer. It's not the fact that the other systems don't have any good games, just not enough for me. Not enough variety. Definitely not in the genre department that I enjoy. As for PC, for me now it's too expensive, and whilst they sometimes scream about backwards compatibility, yet a new part or an update can render half your library useless. A console lasts 7+ years before having to change. 7 years with the same graphics card. Then you spend the next few months praying for a patch so you can play the games that you was playing a couple of months ago. So the PlayStation works perfectly for me. Please note, I've always enjoyed every system I've owned. From my days of Amstrad, Amigos, Sega, Nintendo and Sony have done a great job of keeping me entertained over the years. This generation, Sony has done a fantastic job of bringing a variety of games to the PlayStation platform, and for as long as I feel that way, I will be a Sony guy. So that about wraps it up. If you would, please visit my channel and leave your opinion in the comments down below. I will answer you all. Have a great day. Old School Gamer 1971 signing off.